So Vasudha, it's important also to point out here that these bilaterals cannot be ignored. We of course know that a bilateral with the US President Joe Biden is confirmed. What are the other important bilaterals and what's on agenda?
Well, I think, Vedant, the bilaterals with Joe Biden is going to be very important because, the Prime Minister had a state visit some days ago, and that basically was focused on the push towards semiconductors and, of course, tech transfer. And we had a lot of trade and infrastructure related agreements signed upon. So that is going to be very key. Other than that, we also have a bilateral meeting with Mauritius and also Bangladesh. Bangladesh Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina is going to be in India, and remember, Bangladesh and India both go for polls in 2024, and Bangladesh is also India's biggest trade partner, so that meeting is also going to be important. These bilaterals will take place today and tomorrow, of course, and these Bangladesh and some of these countries like Mauritius are also special invitees. India has gone out of its way to basically invite them because the country which hosts the presidency also has the right to invite some of these countries on its own. So Spain is a permanent invitee, but other than that, there are around 7 nations that India has invited. So some of these bilateral meetings are going to be very important. And of course, the G20 meetings, 18th G20 meeting starts in a few hours from now, and all eyes will be on how India manages to basically hammer out this, leaders' declaration or consensus statement, basically, centered around multilateralism. Remember, the Prime Minister yesterday wrote in op-ed pieces across newspapers that the gains of globalization needs to reach every individual, the last mile worker, and it can't be really limited to a few nations, and that is something that will be watched out. Apart from that, he has been very critical in saying that developed countries also need to fulfill their commitments to the Paris COP26 commitment that they made with respect to climate action, and that basically deals with climate funding, and that is very important. And while developed countries are talking about need for everyone to mitigate efforts, Prime Minister has been very clear that the developed nations need to fulfill the commitments that they've already made. And then of course there is whole India's push for its own DPI and UPI becoming the template of sorts. So there is a multilateral institution that can come up in these meetings. The idea for it has already been sort of discussed in many meetings across the last 1 year. So this agency or this institution can basically use the India's UPI and DPI template to basically help developing countries improve their use of technology in governance. That also is a sign that India is sort of emerging as a international player when it comes to digital governance. So these are some key aspects, and also the most important thing is also to do with women-led development. And this is something that India has been pushing for in the last few months, and with its whole emphasis on this Empower group, which was created for the first time to ensure that female participation in India's workforce and in the global workforce improves. So these are some key focus areas that will feature not just in bilaterals but also in the G20 presidency meeting.
Right, Vasudha, thanks so much for joining us with all those details.